Can a single invention truly steal the sovereignty of an entire continent? In the blood-soaked tall grass of the late 19th century, the Maxim gun proved that rapid-fire technology was more than just a weapon, it was a geopolitical earthquake. How did this laboratory blueprint fundamentally accelerate the colonial scramble? Imagine standing on an open plain. Around you, 5,000 of your brothers in arms. You are the elite. You have faced lions, elephants, cheetahs, and many wild aggressive animals, defended your borders, and followed the rituals of your ancestors. Your spear is an extension of your arm. Now, look across the field. There are only 50 men facing you. They look small. They look weak. But in the center of their line sits a strange, brass-jacketed tube on a tripod. A whistle blows. You charge. In that moment, the world you knew ends. The air isn't filled with the sound of clashing shields. In 5 minutes, 1,500 men are down. You haven't even reached their line. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. A moment later, the sky erupts with thunder. Not lightning. Bullets. Hundreds every minute. In just minutes, entire armies collapse. And the warriors whisper in terror. What kind of gun spits bullets like hell from the heavens? This is the story of the Maxim gun, the weapon that turned the scramble for Africa from a series of negotiations into a brutal, high-tech conquest. In 1884, while European leaders sat in Berlin carving up a map of Africa they had never seen, an American-British inventor named Sir Hiram Maxim was perfecting a monster. Before the Maxim, guns were slow. You fired, you reloaded, you aimed. But Maxim used the gun's own recoil to eject the old shell and load the next. It was the world's first truly automatic weapon. It could fire 600 rounds per minute. That is the firepower of 100 soldiers compressed into one single machine. For European powers like Britain, France, and Germany, this wasn't just a gun, it was a force multiplier. It meant they didn't need massive armies to conquer kingdoms. They just needed the machine. Because while African armies fought with incredible courage, many still relied on spears, shields, arrows, clubs and single-shot muskets. To understand the trauma, we have to look at some extremely tragic examples of what the African warriors faced. First, let us focus at the battles fought further south in the African kingdom of Matabeleland, to the present of what is now southwestern Zimbabwe. In 1893, the Matabele warriors of southern Africa marched into battle. Nearly 5,000 fighters strong. They had faced guns before. But nothing prepared them for what came next. British troops deployed 5 Maxim guns. The Matabele charged. Then the guns began firing. The sound was described by witnesses as a metal storm. In minutes, 1,500 warriors were dead. British losses? Only 4 soldiers. It was not a battle. It was something far worse. Second further north in 5 years is the Battle of Omdurman in 1898. 50,000 modest warriors in Sudan, brave, disciplined, and religiously motivated, charged the British lines. Winston Churchill, who was there, described the scene as not a battle, but an industrial process. The British had 6 gunboats and dozens of Maxims. The Modists never got closer than 800 yards. By noon, 12,000 African warriors were dead. The British, they lost only 47 men. But the wound was deeper than the skin. African warfare was based on honor and ritual. You looked your enemy in the eye. The Maxim gun killed from a distance, without courage, without warning. Warriors began to ask, had the ancestors abandoned us? Is this white man's sorcery? When technology fails you, you turn to the divine. This is where the story gets heartbreaking. But here is the mystery most people never hear about. If the Maxim gun was so powerful, why did African resistance last for decades? Why did European powers struggle for years to control vast regions? The answer reveals something remarkable. African leaders adapted. And some of their strategies nearly changed the course of history. The power of the Maxim gun became so famous that a British writer captured it in a chilling poem. Whatever happens, We have got the Maxim gun, and they have not. Those words summed up the brutal reality of the age of imperialism. Industrial power had tipped the scales of history, but the Maxim gun did something no one expected. Yes, it shattered armies. Yes, it changed the battlefield. But the deepest wound it created was not physical. It was spiritual. For centuries across Africa, war had followed a sacred rhythm. Warriors prepared through rituals. Spiritual leaders called upon ancestors. Battles were fought face to face, where courage, honor, and destiny met in the same field. Victory meant glory. Defeat meant shame. But the Maxim gun broke that ancient contract. It killed warriors before courage could even be tested. It turned battlefields into storms of metal where bravery meant nothing against machines. And suddenly, across the continent, a haunting question began to spread among warriors, elders, and spiritual leaders. Had the spirits abandoned them? Or was this a sign that the old ways of war had ended? Across Africa, new prophets, spirit mediums, and war leaders emerged. They preached that this new war was not just a fight for land. It was a spiritual struggle. A struggle to reclaim dignity. To restore balance between the living and the ancestors. In some places, warriors were told sacred waters would turn bullets into dust. In others, spiritual movements promised protection through divine power. Some of these beliefs would lead to tragedy. But others would ignite some of the most determined resistance movements in African history. Because even the Maxim gun could not destroy something deeper than fear. Faith. And that is the part of the story the history books rarely tell. Because while Europe believed the machine gun had ended African resistance, what it actually created was something far more dangerous. A generation determined to prove that a machine could not kill a people's spirit. And in the next chapter of this story, you will see how African leaders, warriors, and entire communities began to adapt, outthink, and resist the most terrifying weapon of their time. Some would use guerrilla warfare. Others would build their own gun industries. And a few would defeat European armies in battles the world never expected. The Maxim gun changed the battlefield. But it also awakened something powerful across Africa. And that awakening would lead to one of the most remarkable chapters of resistance in world history. The story of how Africans fought back against the machine. And that is where the story really begins. Wait, stay with us in the next chapter to see how Africans resisted and some even defeated the armies with their Maxim guns. Please subscribe for more African history.